because we have a pet project that we want to pursue. We all have our interests and experience, but to be here to serve the people of Canada. And not just to serve our one corner of the country. I'm from Ajax Pickering near Toronto, but to serve the whole country, especially when you're in government, but also when you're in opposition, and to think in national terms, because the policies that are made here, and no legislation goes to the House of Commons without being agreed in this room by the government caucus. And there are sometimes very stormy discussions. There are sometimes divisions in this room. The debate ends when we step out of the room. We are one team, and we back the decision of the whole, just like the cabinet. Smaller group has discussions, differences of opinion, but when it steps out of that room, backs those decisions when they come before the House of Commons, when we take them before the media, when we take them before the country, in elections, obviously. So it is a position of great responsibility, and it is a great honor to serve in this building as a staffer, as a House of Commons, Senate staff, as a political staffer, and certainly as an elected member of Parliament and Senator. And I think it's important for you to sense that, because it's not conveyed by media, who tend to focus on the controversies and the conflicts and the collisions, and tend to write off politicians as not very impressive people, highly flawed people. And yes, many of us are. We all have flaws. Some have tragic ones. And yes, I am thinking of Rob Ford when I say that. But we are only the country we are because we've had good people come into politics in our democratic system for well over 200 years now. And I hope some of you will consider that. You know, being interns, being pages, or maybe even like your very dynamic member of Parliament, being an elected member of Parliament. Because what does it mean to be a Canadian today? Well, it's among other things, you know, apart from being a privilege and a relatively comfortable and prosperous long life compared to the way people live in most of the rest of the world, it's a big responsibility, because we have the world looking to us as an example on so many different fronts that it becomes, with expectations high, it becomes harder and harder to meet those expectations and continue the strong performance we have. And let me talk just very quickly about citizenship and immigration, my area of responsibility. There is no country in the world that has, that accepts over 250,000 immigrants. We're trying to get 265,000 next year, from all over the world, from all backgrounds, including a large number of refugees, the largest per capita stream of refugees for any country as well, in a planned, organized, highly effective way. And not only accepts this immigration because we need it because of our aging population and our growing economy and the shape of our workforce. To be honest, there aren't enough people of your generation to do the jobs we will have in the future. All the projections show that. We don't just do it out of economic calculations. We do it because we celebrate what immigration brings to us. We would not have 2 languages in this country without the diversity that first French and then British immigration got us. We would not have the diversity of our First Nations if they had not immigrated thousands of years ago at different stages from Asia, from other parts of North America. We would not have the diversity, multiculturalism, tolerance that we celebrate if through the 20th century we had not had huge waves of immigration from almost every part of the world. And most recently, in recent decades, it has tended to be Asian immigration that dominates. Asia is the biggest continent, both in geography and in population, and what an outstanding group of immigrants Asia has given us. And look at the ways that has strengthened Canada in every respect and continues to do so, not just by giving us great human capital inside the country, great people, skilled people, but by connecting us to the rest of the world through trade, through family connections, through education, in ways that actually make us stronger, and I think in many cases make those parts of the world, those countries of origin, stronger. So citizenship and immigration is an area we're leading. The economy is probably the main area we're leading. We could have a whole discussion about this. where Canada is now that we came through the worst downturn in the global economy since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Most countries that I considered all through my lifetime to be richer than Canada, more economically stable than Canada, did not do very well. The UK had banks collapsing. The US was at a standstill and much deeper in recession than we were. Their housing market collapsed. We felt the impact of that across our border, but we were relatively stable. And that has meant that our relative standard of living to our peers is more favorable than ever before. And the whole world, in the G7, in the G8, G20, have looked to our model. How can you be so affluent, they asked Canada, and have maintained the stability when everyone else was struggling, when everyone else basically didn't have the right recipe. And so they've looked to our regulation, they've looked to our laws, they've looked to our institutions, public and private, and thought about emulating it. And that's quite a special position to be in. We haven't been looked to on the economic front as a model as often as we have, I'd say, in the last 5 years. Final point before taking a couple of your questions, and I will have to run to a meeting, unfortunately, is with reference to what's in the Hall of Honor out here. That display of faces and names of people that served in Afghanistan. I served there for 6 years. As Canada's ambassador, as the deputy head of the UN mission, I knew many of the faces there. And I was just taking a BlackBerry photo of Paula Lloyd, who was a civilian, an American civilian, who worked with me in the United Nations, had worked for US forces, but actually died in an attack on Canadian soldiers. And it's very moving to see her face there. And a lot of people, let's be honest, think the mission in Afghanistan didn't work out, that it went on too long, that it was a failure. You see that. I hear it from the opposition. We see it in the media as an opinion expressed. I could not disagree more profoundly. Afghanistan is not it. It's not a slam dunk success. It's not, we haven't achieved the objectives we set out to achieve. But without the effort those men and women made, and 40,000 Canadians made, and without the sacrifice that the 158 out there made, you would have 9 million children in Afghanistan either not in school or having a quality of education that was an order of magnitude worse. You would have, ladies and gentlemen, 4 million girls, and 4 million of those 9 million are girls, who wouldn't be allowed to it, because that's what the Taliban had decreed. It's the one regime in history to make girls' and women's education illegal.